All right. So here we are, November the 9th, 2022. This is the day after elections in the US. And I have not looked at all at any of the news today. So I have no idea what's going on. But whatever it is, it's what's supposed to be. And I am certain everything is as it should be because understanding through the Course in Miracles that we are operating in a world that has been scripted for us by us before we incarnate. And having that level of awareness just allows me to not argue with what is, but rather to be quiet enough, still enough inside to be inspired, to be in service to what is. So I want to welcome everybody. Thank you for being here, Miss Jody. So good to have you here with us.
Hi.
It's been a while. This is so
I know. I miss you. I love you.
so good. So good to have you here. Well, I am going to just a couple brief little announcements. We are not going to meet next Wednesday. I am actually traveling to Colorado tomorrow. So I'm going to be there for 10 days. And next, let's see, what is it? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. My daughter is going to be, and her husband are going to be going on a little getaway because grandmother is there to take care of the baby. They're going to be able to do a little time away. So we will not do our call next Wednesday, but there's plenty of them. Whether you go to YouTube or the Facebook playlist, I posted the last maybe 10 calls, 10 Wednesdays on my Facebook, Laina Orlando Awareness Coach. So you can find them there or go to Laina Orlando on YouTube and find the Ascension with A Course in Miracles playlist. I think there's 79 calls on there. They're all public now. And I'm going to be offering these, to anybody and everybody. Don't have to just come through the Patreon group like I was doing it before, because these messages are meant to be shared. These messages are meant to be extended. And I can feel so clear the calling from God to me has been to share the goodness of what we have received through these teachings with anybody who is willing, just willing to receive what has been given. And what the Course in Miracles is all about is just a path it's a companion on this path. As a matter of fact, Course in Miracles says that those who get what the Course is about, they are mighty companions. And the Course is just Jesus being our companion on this path and helping us get to the place where we can come to remember the truth of who we are, our power, which is what's going to assist us to navigate this journey. And I am just so excited. Lorelei, when I saw you pop on there, I mean, my eyes began to water with excitement. It was like, oh my gosh, our sweet, sweet Lorelei, sweet soul, joining us on this journey. So how fun to be putting these calls back out there for anybody to join us, because we get to see so many amazing friends. All right. So
thank you, Laina.
So good to see you. Love the short hairdo.
Good to see you too. How do you like this natural color?
Love it. My natural.
You look beautiful. By the way, Laina, you look gorgeous. I'm sorry, I'm not on. I had some dental work. And Lorelei, oh my God, you look freaking amazing. I love your look and you're radiant and you're glow it. And okay, that's all I have to say. Love you all. And hi, Kat.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Hey, Kat.
You're beautiful.
Hi, sweetie.
How was the wedding?
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Oh, am I muted?
No, we can hear you.
Oh. Yeah, no, it was great. It was great.
Cool.
Well, Lorelei, I was just saying that next Wednesday, we're not going to do the call on Wednesday because I'm going to be in Colorado babysitting my grandson while my daughter and her hubby go away for a couple of days because they'll have Abuelita there to play with Ryder. So it's super exciting.
What does he call you? I was wondering about that.
Abuelita, which is grandmother in Spanish.
Spanish, right.
That's what she wanted. She, from the get-go, she was like, you're writer's abuelita, because she knew I had my abuelita and my mother was her abuelita. So it was like, okay.
Is that A-B?
Abuelita.
Right, that's what I thought. Yeah. Cool.
Yes. And
I'm
so
not going to be on for the whole thing. I just wanted to let you know I wanted to come on for about a half an hour or so and see everybody and participate in the energy.
Wonderful. So glad that you're here. And yes, writer will end up shortening that. All kids shorten it up, and whatever he calls me, he calls me. But I am so excited as I was feeling into, okay, today, what are we going to do? Because last week we talked about, God does not expect sacrifice from anybody. Sacrifice is a mind-made, ego mind-made belief. Nobody has to suffer. And once we learn the truth of who we are, there is no need to suffer. There's only the need to take full responsibility for who you are, empower yourself to be in service in the greater good for all. Know that you are a piece of a big, massive puzzle, not only at the human level, but at the planetary level, at the galactic, galaxy level, at the level of the multiverse. So we really are so important in a big plan. But our minds have been conditioned into, it's all about me. We have blinders on, and we only focus on me, maybe a little bit in our community, a little bit in our town. But once we understand our part in the big picture, there is no need to have fears or suffering or worries or lack. Those things disappear. So the Course in Miracles is attempting to remind us of how powerful we are, how magnificent we are, how holy we are. And as we accept the truth of who we are, we can't help but come to lesson 162, which is today's lesson. The title of it is, I am as God created me. We cannot not be as God created us. And once we accept the truth of who we have been created to be, then the suffering makes sense, because the suffering is the result of not knowing who we've been created to be. But when you know that you are created powerful, why would you want to create suffering? Well, the suffering is the result of not accepting who we are, not accepting our power. But you can't just accept it for yourself. You have to accept it for everybody. This is why it's so important that we understand that we are all equally made by the creative source of all that is, with the same inalienable rights to experience eternal life, to total freedom. We have free will to choose to see things however we want to see them, to choose love over fear, to choose grace over greed, to choose total, complete sovereignty over suffering. It's up to us. Every moment of the day, we are choosing. Course in Miracles wants us to make an empowered choice by becoming aware of the truth of who we are. So this lesson 162, I am as God created me, is one of those lessons that until every single word can be received and felt as your truth, you don't fully understand who you are. That's why I reread it regularly, to keep reminding me of who I am as God created me, not as my ego wants me to think I am. So paragraph number 1, this single thought held firmly in the mind would save the world. I am as God created me. If we all knew that we were created the same, if we all knew that we have the same superpowers, then who is there to, why would we need to fight with anybody else? Why would we need to take anything from anybody else? We're creators of our reality. We don't, if lack is appearing and you need to take from somebody else, then that's the reality you created. If you know you're the creator and you want a different reality than lack, then use your superpower to create and enjoy and experience inside of the abundance, whatever that means to you. Sentence 2 says, from time to time, we will repeat it. Repeat this powerful lesson. I am as God created me. As we reach another stage in learning, it will mean far more to you as you advance. These words are sacred, for they are the words God gave in answer to the world you made. Yes, as our consciousness expands, as we accept more of the truth of who we are, these words take on a totally different meaning. So, for example, when I began my journey and I began my studies in spirituality and understanding who I was, there was a time that I realized, oh my God, I'm so powerful. I am the creator of my reality. But I was so still in my ego, and I was denying, oh, I didn't create this bad marriage, and I didn't create that bad experience, and I didn't create somebody cutting me off, but I'm the creator of my reality. Hey, okay, what am I going to create for dinner? So I started in a very basic way, where I was hearing these truths. I was attending law of attraction classes and reading those kinds of books, attending spiritual centers, learning about my mind. But I was only accepting that I created the good, but never the bad. And I just couldn't take credit for the bad. And my journey progressed. And as I began to be open, to be very honest with myself, and to look at, okay, what about this marriage do I need to see that I created? And I began the studies with and she's passed away since, but her name is Debbie Ford. I began to look at my shadow. I began to participate in workshops. Lorelei, you'll remember at the Center for Inner Knowing, workshops about learning who I am, understanding myself and others. And I began to realize, wow, I created that relationship, co-created that relationship. I was bringing my insecure self to it. So that was part of it. I brought my righteous self to it. I brought my victim-y self to it. I brought my all kinds of selves into that relationship. So they were just acting out and playing their part. So when I began to accept all of those different aspects within myself, it made perfect sense that they were in my marriage. They were there. And once I realized, wow, when my controlling self is involved, it creates that disharmony. When my insecure self is involved, this is what it does. When my fearful self is involved, this is what happens. So I began to look at the patterns that were being created by my many aspects. This is because when we are in our egoic sense of self, and that's what we operate from primarily, we don't remember that we're creators. We don't remember that we're powerful at all. As a matter of fact, the ego's role is to separate us from our truth and hide us from our power. Those who understand how the mind works make certain that we never discover how powerful we are, because if we did, we would realize we're all equal. We're all equally as powerful. So this journey is a journey of not only looking at how did my mind get conditioned into not remembering I am as God created me. Well, I had to go to my parents. I had to go to where I started. And then I began to see I got taught so many different things. I had an atheist mother. I had a Catholic father. I had a predominantly Catholic upbringing. Actually, some of my neighbors were Chinese. So I grew up with a very diverse community, and heard all kinds of different things about God and things like that. So little by little, I began to notice how my upbringing influenced the way that I showed up. You know, my dad was an alcoholic, and we had to tiptoe around dad. We didn't want to make dad mad because, you know, he got mad, you were going to be in trouble. And so I learned to tiptoe. And what that did is I learned how to manipulate. To get my way, I tiptoe around the issues, and I tiptoed around what was happening. I couldn't be direct because I learned as a little girl not to be. Then when I looked at my mom, so controlling, very much, she was in charge of the house. My dad pretty much didn't have a say, probably why he drank. So I had this very controlling side, and I had this tiptoey, scared side that I'm going to get in trouble. And then this controlling side that I'm in charge, so I'm never going to be in trouble. And everything in between. So as I'm looking at my upbringing, all of these different conditioned ways of being that I learned, then I realized, okay, those created all of my aspects, my different selves. And I began to take responsibility for how I was showing up on the world. I realized it's not who I am. It's how the ego aspect in myself protecting me by believing that I was separate from people who could possibly hurt me or give me what I wanted. I picked up those behaviors in childhood. So when I look at something like this and it says, these words are sacred, for they are the words God gave in answer to the world that we made. So I am as God created me. Dondra, we're on lesson 162. So if I am as God created me, and I don't really know what that is, and I know all these different aspects of myself, and they've been creating, well, everything in my life that I don't want, how did that happen? Well, it happened because I chose to incarnate. I chose to have this experience, and I chose to forget how God created me so that I can make up my own idea of who I am. And when I saw my own idea of who I am based on misperceptions, immature experiences as a child, parents who were clueless, who couldn't teach me about conscious thinking, truths, no wonder that I had the experiences that I had that created suffering. But if I am as God created me, and as we looked at last week, suffering is not real. It's not of God. Then how can I live this life without suffering? Well, I've got to give up these aspects of myself. I've got to stop being this manipulative, fearful, victim, bully self. I have to give that up. So as we give these things up, we literally reach another level of understanding about how powerful we are. And then it goes on to say, let me read this sentence number 4 again in paragraph 1. So these words are sacred. I am as God created me, for they are the words God gave in answer to the world you made. By them, it disappears. And all things seen within its misty clouds and vaporous illusions vanish as the words are spoken, for they come from God. So through my journey, I've been on this journey now for 20 years. Back in August, it was 20 years since I saw that I began this journey of self-awareness. What has become glaringly obvious as I look back is that the journey was about first finding out all of where was my suffering coming from, thinking it came from mom and dad and husband and children and everything external. Then I had to look at, well, where's my part in that? And then I saw what I projected. And then I realized those projections out there were coming from in here. All right, so let me go look at these different selves that I created. As I began to be really honest of my manipulative self, my fearful self, all of those selves, controlling selves, I began to make a decision. Those are all coming from fear. I needed to give up fear. I needed to give myself permission to begin to enter into a relationship with a part of me that didn't have fear. And it was a very gradual process. And of course, all of the teachings that supported that came to me. The Power of Awareness workshop download came to me, and I began to make sense of what was happening. I had a beautiful, that I call it my near life experience, because I had an encounter with the divine that helped me see clearly the power, the majesty, the magnificence of what God is. And we've been created by God to be creators like God. And so I'm receiving more truths, and I'm letting go of lies. And little by little, where I was living in the lies of my separate selves, doing all the things that we do from ego, no clue about the truth that I am. I mean, I knew, I had heard I'm created in God's image, but my image of God was an angry, judgmental God. I didn't want to be like God. I didn't want to be that, even though I was an angry, judgmental bitch many times. But, I wasn't a man, so I couldn't be like God. So little by little, in tandem, like on a seesaw, this comes down, this goes up. I became less egoic, more conscious. I became less controlling. I became more curious. And little by little, there was a tipping of the balance. until it became my journey. Instead of working on all the ways that I was operating from ego, then the journey was all of the ways that I can feel God within. And it's very simple. The only way to feel God within is to extend what God is, and that is love. And love looks like so many different things. Looks like kindness, compassion, generosity. It looks like being curious, being open-minded, being tolerant, being defenseless. I had no idea all those things are characteristics of love. Because when you know that you are as God created you, you're pure goodness on this planet. And goodness does those things. So as I began to lessen my egoic way of being and increase who I am as God created me, my life began to change. Now it changed drastically from the outside. Marriages, ended, letting go of homes, letting go of money, letting go of status, letting go of career. All that changed big time on the outside, but that was making space for the shifts that were happening on the inside. And there's no amount of money, a status, positions, husbands you could give me that I would ever trade for the peace that passes all understanding that I experience. To me, that has the most value of anything. My peace, my joy is what I value more than anything now. I don't give it up for anything in the world. So when we come to know who God is, we come to know why we were created and what we are created from. We're created from love to extend itself through each and every one of us. So in paragraph number 2, it says, here is the word by which the Son became his Father's happiness, his love, and his completion. Here, creation is proclaimed and honored as it is. There is no dream these words will not dispel, no thought of sin and no illusion which the dream contains that will not fade away before their might. As I was accepting the word, in the beginning, there was the word. And when God created me, it said that I was good. That's in religion. And God created everything, and then it rested and said, behold, it is good. So it is good because it is godly. It is God. It is love. It's pureness, like a child, like a puppy, like a kitten. It's born in innocence and born to express itself magnificently if it has the proper parameters around it, the proper community, the proper parents that not teach the child, but remind the child to connect with its truth so that it can remember that it is as God created it. I didn't have that. You guys didn't have that. I know every single one of you didn't have that growing up. So we have to go on a journey to remember that. And as we begin to remember that, we begin to realize, wow, God created each and every one of us to extend the love that God is. So God is all of it, but what it is, its desire, if you want to call it that, is to experience its creation, to be the giver and the receiver in every relationship where there's an exchange in giving and receiving, where I get to give my attention to the sunset, and the sunset gives me the beauty that can leave me, stops me. Like last night, we had the red moon. I went out and I looked at this beautiful moon, and I was just like, wow, I was giving it my attention, giving it my appreciation. And in turn, I was receiving from it its majesty. I was receiving its wisdom, all that the moon has seen us go through. I mean, it just keeps watching us and never judging us. Present there, it comes up no matter what, no matter how we behave, it's there. Well, that's God as the moon looking at us and reflecting back to us who we are. And the sun is the same thing. The trees, the grass, all of it is God having an opportunity to be in service, in relationship with each and every one of us. But when we get to people, if our minds have been corrupted by the real virus, which is fear, the ego gets in the mind and activates all of this fear. If the mind gets corrupted by these beliefs, like I did as a child growing up, trying to navigate my family situation so that I could stay safe and protected, we create a delusion. We create an illusion. We make up how we should be in the world to try and keep us okay. And that making up what I need to do to be okay is a barrier, is a block to remembering that I don't need to manipulate the world to be okay. I'm okay because I am as God created me. So the shift was very gradual, but it's a necessary process that we all have to go through. And this is what is so important, is that there is absolutely no illusion that will not be dispelled when you understand the truth of who you are. There is no thought of sin and no illusion which the dream contains that will not fade away. And I used to think that I was this bad person because I behaved the way that I did. You know, I was so controlling, so manipulative. I forgave myself. It was like, wow, that was the personas that I created. But who was I before all of that? Well, I was just a soul like everybody else that incarnated into the body of a baby. And I was just an immature child. I did not know any different. So I took on experiences, beliefs from the outside and created a mask. But who I was, the soul that incarnated, that is innocent, has always been there. So I had to use the teachings of the course to remind me of who I am. I am the soul. I am not my persona. I am not the masks that I wear. I'm not the controlling person. I learn controlling behaviors. I am not a victim. I learn victim patterns. Well, once you are not using those things anymore, like you don't use the old clothes in your closet, once you stop using that, well, they fall out of your awareness. They're not even accessible to you to use. You stand more grounded in the truth of who you are. That's why we're peeling layers of an onion. We have so many masks, thousands of masks, thousands of ways that we delude ourselves with things that we made up, all that appear to protect us. Now, when we do this work, we all come to the place that we see the masks. We can identify it as ego. And all of us do this. We say, well, that was protecting me. Yes, it's protecting you until the time that you are ready to admit that you are as God created you. When you admit that you are as God created you, what appears to protect you is actually a prison, because it's keeping you from coming out into the world and showing who you really are. So these masks, these ways of showing up that become ingrained patterns, really need to be looked at as, okay, as a child, it protected me, but as an adult, I mean, I'm acting childish. As an adult, it's a prison for the real self that wants to come out. And you can't let the real you come out until you stop believing that you can be hurt, that you can be affected by others. So as you strengthen that you are as God created you, powerful, holy, mighty, complete, you don't need anything from anybody else. Comes then the journey of letting go of those masks, because you don't want to be imprisoned anymore. You don't want to have the warden in your head telling you you've got to be a victim because of what somebody did, or you've got to take control of the situation because you can't trust anybody else. All those thoughts in the head that are egoically based all come from a place of fear, insecurity, I'm not enough. All of that is the result of not knowing who you are as God created you. And you can't know that if your parents don't teach you that, help you remember that. So now I've got a little grandbaby. My work is to help Ryder remember who he really is. And thank goodness his parents are conscious enough to support that, to ensure that he does not grow up thinking he's got to give up his power to mom and dad. But they treat him like, they're there to help him stay safe as he gets into the stage of life as an adult where he no longer needs mommy and daddy to help him. But for now, the role is that mom and dad guide Ryder. But that doesn't mean that he is less than how God created him. Doesn't mean he's not powerful. Doesn't mean that he is not creative on his own right, which means we don't have the right to indoctrinate him with our beliefs of what he should think, how he should be, how he should act and behave to appease us. but rather it's a collaboration between a master that has come into the planet to bring us just reminders of the truth of who we are, and those who are on this process awakening, letting go of the limitations that we picked up through our indoctrination that blocked us from knowing who we really are. So it's a beautiful process to witness. Let me go to sentence number 4, still in paragraph number 2. So these words, they are the trumpet, the words, I am as God created me. These are the trumpet of awakening that sounds around the world. The dead awake in answer to its call, and those who live and hear this sound will never look on death. When you know that you are as God created you, and you know that you're eternal, you have no fear of death. Because as the Course teaches, we're not a body, we are free. We are always as God created us. So as we become aware of the truth of who we are as God created us, the egoic patterns of beliefs, fears about the body, fears of death, they begin to go away because you are connecting with the part of you that knows that in your eternal essence, there is no death. In the human experience, there is a death experience and a birth experience. My grandson went through the birth experience, and my grandparents went through the death experience. But that does not mean that they're not alive and well. Their souls are eternal. They are always and forever alive and well. And everybody here is going to go through birth and death as an experience, but that is not how God created you. God created you eternal. We are choosing this temporary experience. So when you realize, I'm choosing a temporary experience, I'm choosing to incarnate. And if I am as God created me and I'm powerful and I'm made of love and I'm creative, why do I need to create with suffering? Why am I continuing to create coming into unconscious lifetimes? Well, we come into unconscious lifetimes because that was the original plan of how we all enter into the human experience, the 3D world. But so many are waking up, remembering, wait a second, I'm as God created me, so that we can stop the karmic merry-go-round where we keep coming back and incarnating in these lower frequencies, lower densities, continuing to get programmed with misinformation. As you begin to awaken, you begin to move to the other side, remember the truth of who you are. And by moving to the other side, I mean, shift how you think and begin to lift your vibration of thought, move into the higher frequencies of love, and move out of the lower frequencies of fear and guilt and shame and all of those things. So we are in the midst right now. The outer world is a reflection of our inner world. We're discovering that we are as God created us and letting go of what's egoic. Well, guess what? As within, so without, as I had to look at myself to see what I had projected in my marriage, I've got to look at myself and look at the world around me. So when I look at everything that is happening, we just had an election here in the US yesterday. Every single person that is running for political office has ego and are still as God created them. So the work begins to see, okay, who's operating more as God created them? Who's listening more to their ego? And it's always very simple to watch. One, when it's ego, it's coming from control, been there, done that. Coming from fear, been there, done that. Coming from manipulation, been there, done that. Coming from lies, been there, done that. So I can recognize the outer world, no matter what it is, politics, medicine, education system, religion, just people in general, movie, whatever it is. I can see clearly who is coming from that part of egoic self that is blocking the self that God created, the goodness, the love. Those who are coming more from that truth are coming from greater good for all. Speak of God, absolutely, in certainty that this is a world that God has created, that they put God's will first. Speak with that knowingness that that is what they are here to help us remember, which is what the Course in Miracles is teaching us. We are as God created us, and we need to acknowledge God within our lives. We need to bring God back, because the Course in Miracles says we have one problem. It's the authority problem. We have made authorities of our egoic self and other idols. We have put others in positions of authority. When we do that, our ego gets to be, well, I don't know as much as they do. I've got to do what they say I have to do. Puts us in a parent-child relationship, student-teacher relationship, employee-boss relationship, citizen-government relationship. And those are not natural relationships because they have hierarchy. One has to be higher than the other. When we enter relationships, because we're playing roles, but we enter as equals, what we are doing then is recognizing I am Ryder's grandmother, but Ryder is just as much a master as I am. Ryder is just as much as God created him as I am. So now the relationship becomes one of equals in different roles. And then we can use those the way that we've been differentiated from one another. I'm female and older, he's boy and younger. We use those differences for the pure joy of why we're here to experience. I get to be the one who pushes them on the swing, and I watch the sunset. I get to be in the joy of experiencing, of witnessing, of giving that push that sends him off into a place of such fun. And then I get to receive the laughters that he puts out, because you all know little babies, little kid laughters are contagious. So when you know that you are as God created you, you treat everybody in that level of reverence. Now, in the outer world, whether it was with my husband, with my children, or with the government, it doesn't matter. And I always use those examples and always lump them together because anything external that is made up by humans is always an opportunity to see, where am I coming from? Am I coming from my ego, or am I coming from my true essence, my love, my godly self, my soul, my spirit? So as you look outside, you're basically using it as a mirror, because we are projecting ourselves outside. So I look at the projection, I look at the image coming back to me, and I get to decide, okay, these people that all, as God created them, operating from God or from ego, I get to have compassion for wherever they are. And the world, for the most part, is a mixture. Some are really dense, some are really high, but the majority is in between, going flip-flopping back and forth, as I did for a very, very long time. And that is okay. But as we allow ourselves to receive the truth of who we are and move through what it says here, the trumpets of awakening, we are listening to the inspiration, the intuition that is having us be curious about these two selves of ours, about our higher self, our lower self, our authentic self, our made up self, our illusory self, the ego mind, because you can change your egoic mind. You don't have to believe those thoughts. And actually, when you don't believe any of those ego thoughts, all that's left is the truth of who you are as God created you. And Ryder knows the truth of who he is. Thank you so much for being here with us, sweet Lorelei. So wonderful to see you. We have to definitely connect, the two of us. So we will not have to be concerned with death and what I got to live my life before I die, because you will be living your life awake, which is actually to be present in life in a way that we cannot be present to when we are in our ego. The next paragraph says, holy indeed is he who makes these words his own, arising with them in his mind, recalling them throughout the day, at night bringing them with him as he goes to sleep. Yes, if you go to bed thinking about who you are as God created you, if you wake up knowing you are as God created you, and in between the day you remember, I'm a powerful creator creating my own reality. Why am I blaming this on that one? Why am I blaming this on that? Why am I projecting power outside of me? What is it that I need to remember about myself? What is it that I need to learn by projecting that I am powerless to this, that, or the other, or that I have not more power over this, that, or the other? If we make that practice of remembering I am as God created me throughout the day, we completely change our lives. you take full responsibility for every experience. Now, all of a sudden, you begin to realize, wait a second. So if I created this and it's not so much my preference anymore, then let me create that. And then you begin to take the actions that are part of having a physical body, a physical experience in making those things manifest. And that is part of accepting our holiness. We are holy beyond measure, absolutely powerful beings. Whether we remember that while we are in physical form or we don't remember it, does not matter. We are still holy. The death experience is a return to that awareness completely, because we're no longer deluded by the density of the ego. Then he goes on to say, sentence number 2, his dreams are happy and his rest secure, his safety certain and his body healed, because he sleeps and wakens with the truth before him always. He will save the world because he gives the world what he receives each time he practices the words of truth. If you know you are as God created you, and you know God created you holy, powerful, creative, loving, kind, generous, trusting, you save the world. You spare the world your judgments. You treat others in the same way. This is why Jesus taught us when he was incarnated. He taught us to love our neighbors as ourselves, because we're all made of the same thing. We're all as God created us. Every single one of us is absolutely capable of making a decision to choose love or choose fear. We all have the ability to think however we want to think. Nobody can take that away from us. Somebody can imprison our bodies. Somebody can actually hurt our body. Somebody could even take our life experience away by killing us. They absolutely can do that, but nobody can change our mind for us. And nobody, of course we can be programmed, but we have to accept the programming for the programming to land. And that's why we get programmed as children, because if we all had the opportunity to grow up consciously, nobody ever would be subjected to slavery, would be subjected to anything that is not less than worthy of a holy being. But the program starts when we are little, and the mind is plastic. The mind is pliable. The mind can be filled with information while we are in that state of curiosity. This is why we have to wake up and be the change. Let me just say this. You don't have to wake up if you don't want to. We all have free will. But this is why so many are waking up, because the world has gone too far on the ego side. And that's not what God created us to experience. God created us to experience contrast by seeing what happens when we block love. We've seen it, been there, done that, thousands of years, same thing. If you look at history, it's the same thing, keeps repeating. Different people, different costumes, different, whatever, but it's the same thing. We conquer each other, we kill each other, some are nice to each other, but it's repeating the same old thing, expecting a different result. You can't do it with the ego. We've got to find out, who are we as God created us? Many of us are ready to just operate from that place of truth. But that's the truth. It's the truth that sets us free, because it frees us from having to judge others. It frees us from being right. And as we are freed from needing to control circumstances, we do what it says here. He will save the world. We spare the world our judgments, because we give the world what we have received each time that we practice the words of truth. I am as God created me, and so are you. So Mr. President, or Mr. Dictator, or Mr. Boss, or Mr. Teacher, you are as God created you. So I'm not going to look at you as some kind of idol, because you're not any higher than I am. We're both equal. You're just playing a different role than I am. And when people become sovereign and remember the truth of who they are, they will stand up for things that are absolutely in alignment with the greater good of all. It is only when we're operating from ego and selfish, well, I only want what's best for me. So you got to do this because it's good for me. Or somebody tells us that we've got to do it for them. And if we don't do it for them, then we're not going to get whatever it is that we think we need to get from them that's good for me. It always comes back to what's good for me. When we operate from fear, it's what's going to protect me, what's going to save me. when we operate from sovereignty, there's no fear. So then, oh, what, you're going to take what away from me? You can even take my life from me, as Jesus was an example of. You can even take my life from me. It doesn't matter because I'm eternal. When you know the truth of who you are free. You are free from fear, free from anything that has to do with making you participate in something you don't want to participate in, because you recognize within you your freedom. Then it goes on to say in the next paragraph, and this will be our last paragraph. Well, let's see. Actually, let's complete there and then we can pick up. Now, we're not going to meet next week because I will be in Colorado. So I am going to be watching my sweet little baby Ryder while his parents go away for a nice little extended couple of days. You know, it's 3 days away from your baby is a long time. I remember being a new parent and I didn't want to be away from my babies. It took me years to want to get away or to let myself go away from them. I wanted to get away from them a lot when they were younger, but to actually do it and take time, days away, it didn't happen till they were probably a little older. But so I feel blessed that my daughter and my son-in-law, they trust me and they let me be the one that keeps their little baby so that they can take a little break and go away. So we will not gather next Wednesday, but we will definitely after that. But let me stop here. Let me get your feedback. Did some of this message resonate with you? Did it activate questions, comments? Did it do, unmute yourselves and share whatever it is that you would like to share, if you have something to share. If not, we wrap up our time together.
It's a reminder to me that I have to tell myself over and over, I am as God created me. And it's just such a profound reminder to repeat that every day to yourself.
Yeah. And more than just repeat it, Dondra, know what the words mean.
There you go.
I am as God created me, but what does that mean? What does that mean? Because our superpowers will return to us in conscious awareness when we really understand what we were created for. That's absolutely key. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification.
Absolutely.
I feel it inside me. Yeah.
Absolutely. Anybody else?
Hey, Laina.
Hello.
Hi, sweet. Who was it? You would know. And she says, oh, Marianne Williamson. She said, you know, what we really fear is how powerful we really are. Mm-hmm. And I've always like, well, why would we fear how powerful we really are? And so it would mean we have to make different life choices.
Yeah, but we have to start by accepting that the choices that we made were the use of our power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you said somewhere in here, taking full responsibility for what I created, and that's interesting.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was a powerful lesson, and I'm really glad I was on the call.
Good. I'm so glad that you're here. Well, thank you so much, as always, for participating in these Wednesday transmissions, because I just feel the presence of the creative source that just uses me to bring these words more alive and more practical, so that it is helpful to anybody who is listening, to gain some perspective, to gain some ideas of how to put this into practice in your own lives. And I know that if it works for me, it'll work for anybody, because I am an ordinary person. There's nothing extraordinary about me. I'm an ordinary person. And if I can apply this in my life, it's what makes my life extraordinary, because I'm in the world, but I'm not of it anymore. meaning that the things out there, that's not what informs me about who I am. I know that I am as God created me, and I walk through this world with that certainty. That makes me a peaceful being, and I save the world because I don't need to judge it anymore. I don't need to get anything from it. It is there for me to extend the love that I have. And in the giving of that love and compassion and kindness and gentleness, I receive so much joy. So thank you so much. And again, this is November the 9th, 2022. Amazing things are happening worldwide. That's because the world is in the midst of a great awakening, as within, so without. We're awakening. The world's awakening because the world's made up of people that are awakening. So there you go. Be kind and compassionate with those who are just now discovering that they are as God created them and not victims or bullies as they might have thought that they were. All right, everybody. Love you all. Let's
Hey.
yes. Bye-bye.
Love you. Bye.
Love you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.